I talked about this earlier and the irony that is happening with Hunter Biden and the conviction. The politics of this is that he's the son of the president. I will tell you that in my opinion, the politics of this has nothing to do with guns. It has nothing to do with drugs. It has nothing to do with addiction. The politics of this has everything to do with whether or not you believe there was an assistance in the cover-up in calling it Russian misinformation. I'm not talking about that right now, but I believe that's where the politics of this lies. The reality of this is you have someone who happens to be very well known because he's the son of the president that has been convicted of 3 felonies because he lied on applications and owned firearms as an addict. So I'm going to read to you this very quickly, the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. There's no exception for drug use. There's no exception for convictions. There's no exception for anything. As a matter of fact, they expressly say, shall not be infringed. How odd would it be if after the big gun control push by this president, this administration, if it was his son's case challenged all the way up to the Supreme Court that solidified and strengthen the power of gun owners. And even odder, even more odd, I don't even know if, well, I know otter is a word, but it's an animal. It would be more odd if the NRA defended Hunter Biden. Here's a gun influencer recently said he was disappointed at the silence among firearms owners amidst the Hunter Biden federal gun trial. And here's the narrative. While Hunter Biden's past drug use is well documented, he pleaded not guilty to the gun charges, arguing that he completed a rehab program shortly before he purchased the weapons and checked off no on a federal form that asked if he was an unlawful user of or addicted to any controlled substances. Gun owners must complete a 4473 form, which the ATF refers to the firearms transaction record when purchasing a firearm as licensed. So here's the quote. I am disappointed in the short-sightedness of the 2A community in the Hunter Biden case. Remove political partisanship from the equation. You don't have to be like Hunter Biden. Hell, I don't, obviously, but you don't have to like Hunter Biden. Hell, I don't, obviously. Not my quote, his quote. But this is a chance to further prove the unconstitutionality of 4473. This is a guy named Eric Blanford, a Georgia State Director for Gun Owners of America. So this is, again, as it always is, it is not just about one case, but it is the ripple effect. How many of you listening are users of illicit drugs? What would be considered? I'm not judging. I'm saying how many of you, federally speaking, they've reduced marijuana from a class 1 drug. How many out there that have their medical marijuana cards or their, go before, but now are going to dispensaries to get marijuana? You are in violation of this for sure. And how many of you want to be prosecuted for felonies when they say you're lying on forms? Because every time you buy a firearm, you have to fill out another form and swear and affirm that you're not a user of or addicted to illicit drugs. How many people out there have had an addiction to opioids because they were prescribed medication and they ended up having to get some kind of treatment for an opioid addiction? So I'm not for it. I'm not against it. But the more I think about this, it would be the most ironic scenario I can think of. Imagine if Hunter Biden, with the help of organizations like Gun Owners of America, the NRA, what if he was defended and his case was taken through the appeals court process? Now, I don't think that's going to happen. But imagine that case getting to the Supreme Court, because other people now, there is a precedent. You now have a very prominent person in America that has been convicted. And I guarantee you, with what's going on with fentanyl, what's going on with the opioid addictions in America, what's happening with people that were taking pain medication without any idea the addictive, how addictive those drugs were, that there are people out there that have either gone to get help. The other side of this, and it was another unintended consequence of a situation like this, is how many people out there will refuse to seek treatment because they're afraid that as soon as I say to a doctor that I'm using drugs or I'm worried that I'm using too much of these drugs, I'm having trouble when I don't have them, I can't sleep. I've gone doctor shopping to try to get more prescriptions. I've been told by doctors that they're not refilling my prescription and they've recommended me to get help. How many of them will not receive treatment because they're terrified that the ATF is going to knock on their door and take their guns? I just wonder what Pandora's box this is opening. Imagine if Hunter Biden was, there's two unbelievable scenarios. One is that organizations like the NRA, organizations like Gun Owners of America, imagine if Ted Nugent posted that Hunter Biden shouldn't be convicted of this crime. How ironic would that be? The other side of the irony is, what if he won in court? What if it was the NRA and Gun Owners of America and the Hunter Biden case that went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decided, you know, the Second Amendment is very explicit in saying shall not be infringed. And that's what it means. Therefore, you can't restrict. And then what? So this is bigger than the politics. We always go for the low-hanging fruit, which is human nature. It's not, I'm not condemning. It's a human nature. We go to the immediate, I don't like that guy. I don't like that family. I don't like those people. I'm glad he got convicted. He shouldn't have lied about the laptop, all this other stuff. But the implications long-term. And I do think it's ironic. And you've got, I'm glad I didn't read that story until Julia brought it to me. I was thinking about this as I was watching coverage of it. That wouldn't it be crazy? Because what made me think about it was how absurd it was that the President of the United States spoke at a gun control rally about, and when all this was going on, this conviction. It's just, to me, the ultimate. And timing was just horrible, but just the complete tone-deaf attitude.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Tap to watch the first season of Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast. You can also click the button in the middle to subscribe.